Hi again, Cold Warrior 78, I'm Ron, and we're going to work on a barrel project. If you've been on the channel at any time, you know that I built this in, gosh, I think it was 2014, and I started taking it apart and then realized I probably ought to do a video on this because I haven't done a video in a long time, and that's typically been the problem. I got so much to do, I jump into the project, start working on it, and then the next thing you know, I should have taken a video of that. So for those of you who haven't seen a lot of, that's my dog, Snowball. For those of you who haven't seen a lot of content in a while, sorry, you get busy. So anyway, if you haven't seen the Rainwater Catchment project with the 9 barrels building it, you might want to go back and see that because it explains what I was doing at that point. So basically, in a nutshell, I started experimenting with rainwater catchment 10 years ago or so, where I had a barrel, one of these things, underneath the downspout, because you ought to have gutters on your house. So I had a barrel underneath a downspout at each of the gutters, or most of the gutters anyway. And then, okay, that's cool, I had water in a barrel. What was I going to do with it? Well, normally you would have all of your gardens downhill from the house or wherever you're catching the rainwater, so everything's gravity fed. Yeah, that's great. We didn't plan it that way. We were in a homestead from the very beginning. This was going to be my retirement home. We weren't going to homestead or anything like that. I didn't ever want to be a farmer. That wasn't anything I ever had the slightest inkling I wanted to do. Things change. So anyway, our raised beds and everything are all uphill. The fruit trees are all uphill. So the water catchment, the rainwater catchment, becomes a storage facility, catch the rainwater, and then I use a 12-volt transfer pump and an old battery to shoot it up the hill to other storage containers, which I'll give you a quick tour of that later on. But the first project was just individual rain barrels. Very quickly realized that even a slight rainstorm, just a little bit of a rainstorm, will fill a 55-gallon drum in a heartbeat. So, and when you don't have any rainwater catchment, a 55-gallon drum or 3 or 4 of them sounds like, wow, that's a lot of water. That's, 4 of them is 200 gallons of water. I'll never use that much water. Yeah, well, not really. Once you start growing any kind of gardens, raised beds, you're going to use a lot of water, particularly if it doesn't rain in the summertime, which has happened a couple of times. So then the second iteration of that was this 9-barrel system you see behind me. Again, there's a video on that, which, 450 gallons of water-ish. I thought, wow, that's more water than I'll ever need. Not true. Past 2 years running, we had droughts in the summertime. It didn't rain for anywhere between 90-something and 100-and-something days. And we went through literally all of this water and water that was uphill in the storage containers by the gardens. In some cases, we used almost 1,000 gallons of rainwater catchment to keep our gardens viable during the summer when there was no rain, which is one of the big reasons why you ought to have something like this. And then, so the next iteration of this is I'm going to replace this 9 barrels and all the plumbing and everything with 2 IBC totes. Now an IBC tote is those big square things. I'll show you what they are. I got a couple of them uphill. But they're 275-ish, depending on where you put the drain plug, gallons a piece. So 2 of those, even at 250 gallons a piece, will give me an extra 50 gallons that I don't have here. And the plumbing is way simpler because you're only talking 2 containers, each of which is already plumbed with a valve at the bottom, rather than this ridiculous thing that I have back here. Now, it worked, and it worked for a long, long time. So, as ridiculous as it was, it's just that when you use smaller barrels, you're doing a lot more plumbing, a lot more chances for leakage. So, let's take a break. I'll go show you what the IBC totes are for those of you who are not familiar with them. And then we'll come back to this. Stand by. All right, so here, this is an example of an IBC tote that I've rigged for storing water above the garden. This is one of my berms right there with a fruit tree. Kind of hard to see if I've already cut things back for the fall, so you can't really tell what else is in there. But anyway, this is one of the primary places where I use water. It's 50 foot vertically above where the other rainwater system is. Again, that's why I have to use a pump. But for those of you not familiar with the IBC totes, it's a plastic box inside of a aluminum container. They're all plumbed at the bottom with a valve. Let me get you a little bit closer shot of the valve here. There you go. See, so it already comes with a valve, and then you buy a coupling, and then you put some plumbing on it. Everything I do is with a hose. So there's a 3/4 inch hose. I put right here, this hose is a drain for overfilling it. Since it's not really the rainwater catchment, I fill this with a pump. It seldom gets over full, but I put that in all of them anyway. And then you see the blue tarp. This is a medium weight. Well, if you go to Walmart, they call it a heavyweight, but industrial wide, it's a medium weight blue tarp that I've folded around it. So you take the rails off the top, pop the thing out. After you clean it, then you cover it with a tarp, because you don't want the sun to create algae on the inside of the tank. I'm going to start experimenting with painting again. My first episode of painting these things, not entirely successful. That's the reason why I was using the tarps, but I'm going to go back and try that again. One note for those of you who are looking to get into this, what I was told, and certainly you can check this with other people, but what I was told is ever since the Obama administration, see this kind of teal green cap, zombie green tap, and the same thing on the valve. See that color? I was told that that is the way you can tell it is a food safe container. If it's got the standard caps on it that are not teal colored, that is not, I say again, not food safe. And I don't know about you, but if I'm going to store water, it ought to be in a food safe container. They're going to cost a lot more. They're also all made by, everyone that I've found, it's made by that company right there. Shirts, I guess it is. Shoots. Okay. So anyway, that's what I was told a food safe container is now, and I've got several of them. All right, so stand by. All right, so this is what the IBC totes look like before you start plumbing them in or anything. These have been rinsed out before I put them in service. I'm going to wash them again. But again, you can see the teal green cover and the teal green valve down there. It's made by that same company. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. Okay, those guys. And that's a symbol for food contact. There are an awful lot of people out there selling these things that are not food grade. I actually had one guy, well, hang on a minute, stand by. So when I first went to get these IBC totes, the first IBC tote I ever got, pushing 10 years ago now, it was outside of a hardware store out in the country somewhere, and this guy was selling IBC totes for watering your animals, because that's what I wanted to get something for my chickens. Unfortunately for him, fortunately for me, I knew a lot of the DOT danger, you know, the placarding kind of information. So the numbers on the side of these things were telling me that this stuff was caustic or acidic or whatever. Absolutely not food grade, even though this guy swore up and down they were clean and they were good for animals and they were good. No. And if you're going to leave water in these things for a long time, it ought to be food grade. I'm not feeding my animals out of something that had brake fluid in it, and I recommend you don't either. If you want to take a shot, think you can clean it out enough, that's cool. Polypropylene plastic does not it's too porous to ever really get clean. It's like cleaning out the inside of a milk jug. If anybody's ever tried to do that, you know how bad an idea that is. So get one that's food safe. Now, food safe may wind up with, like some of these things had, I had one that had soy sauce in it. It stained black, even though if I pressure washed it. Okay, so there's a little bit of soy sauce coming out into the water. Pfft, I don't care. My chickens don't care. Sheep aren't going to care. And plants don't certainly care. But I try to keep it with something. These all had lecithin or some version of something like that. So it's a greasy, oily kind of thing. It's easier to get out. And since it's in a lot of foods, if it winds up in something that I got to eat, okay, I guess I can live with that. But food grade, and clean them out really, really, really well. Probably talking pressure washers for that most of the time. If you don't have a pressure washer, a guy I know threw in the back of the truck, took him to a car wash, one of those coin car washes with the pressure washer thing on it. Works just as well. Okay, so, but get food grade. Don't take a chance on this other crap. All right, so stand by. All right, so here's another one of these water cubes. And again, for those of you who are not familiar with these things, it's about 4 foot high by about 4 foot long by about 4 foot deep. Not exactly, I think it's like 42 inches instead of 4 feet, but to get in your head the size of this thing, it's 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot. Again, there's the little green on the top, the little green thing down there, so that's food grade, wrapped in a blue tarp. But this is coming off of a shed, okay, and that's just the Home Depot gutter up there with a piece of downspout that came off the house, and it's just going into the top of the container. And if you can see, it's a little dark in there. There is a screen, doubled up piece of screen with a big rubber band around it, and I just shoot the water straight into that, and then every once in a while I'll go in and clean out the crap, leaves and whatever's up there. Also, the gutter has a filter system in it, keeps a lot of the crap out. So far I haven't had any problem with you know, leaves and stuff decomposing in there, but if you do, again, it's not that big a deal if you're watering your garden with it. But that's a very, very simple concept for rainwater catchment. Off the gutter, through the downspout, down to the top of the container, and then when you want it, you've got a built-in valve, again with a very simple hose bib right there. One thing I wanted to point out though is that if you've got 250 or more, some of these things are over 300 gallons, that's a lot of water, that's heavy. Okay, call it 8 gallons or 8 pounds per gallon, excuse me. So you do the math, that's a lot of water, ton plus. So every time I put these things in, it's on a there's concrete footer right down here. For those of you who are used to building, you know what a footer is. Okay, pour concrete, and then I stack up block, and then in this case I put a raft of landscaping timbers. So I need to do that to get it to the height that I wanted it. Okay, so foundation, put these things on a solid, not going to move kind of foundation. Do not screw around with that, because if a ton of water starts to wobble, it'll hurt somebody really, really badly. Now, just by way of comparison, that's the last barrel from the original system when I said that it came straight down, again, gutters way up there, downspout into the PVC and then into the barrel. You can't get any simpler than that. Now this barrel does not have any valves or anything down here, and I did that because I knew I had to bring it way up there. Let's see if I can kind of, okay, there's the cube that we were talking about, IBC tote, and there's the gardens and stuff way uphill. Okay, so depending on how far up you're going, anywhere between 40 and 50 feet uphill, So all I would do is pull this plug out, drop the hose in from the pump, and pump the water uphill. I didn't have any need for a hose bib down at the bottom because there's nothing downhill from this that needs to get watered. Okay, so you can't get any simpler than that, but it wasn't enough. Okay, stand by. Okay, so with that orientation, let me go back to kind of catch up on what I've already done. Okay, so the main, these are 2-inch PVC pipes. I've already cut off the angle over here that came in from the gutters. I've got a temporary, it's kind of hard to see, but it's a black drain pipe just duct taped into the thing for the time being. So if it rains while I'm in the middle of the project, the water still goes away from the house, doesn't wind up here where I'm working. Same thing for, again, that pipe's a little out of frame right now. Okay, yeah, over here on this angle. All right, this was another set of, basically another downspout. Came in here, that fed the bottom to, the middle two rows, middle rows. So I've cut those, again, temporary drain on that. I've already cut 2 sections of pipe out up here behind me. Let me get out of the way. Okay, so in here and in here, used to have these. And then before I did all this, obviously I drained the barrels as much as I could. I did that yesterday using our pump system to fill up the barrels and the IBC totes up the hill. What I'm doing right now is making sure that there's nothing left in it. So I'm going to move this temporary drain, better shot, hose, magical duct tape, and a couple of pieces that are just dry fit together because they're not going to stay that way. And then what I had done was rotated this piece around, put the drain on it. Come on now. There we go. To get out any last bit of water. Since it cut the vent pipes as well, I can move this forward, tilt it downward, and there's still a little bit of water that's got to come out of these things. Oops, there you go. Probably can't see anything, you can probably hear it though. The problem with barrels is this distance right here. Okay, you've got about 4 inches at its deepest point, maybe 3, of water still in these things when they're empty. And in a 55-gallon drum, that probably equates to 8 or 10 gallons on the worst, maybe 5 on the best. Anyway, water's heavy. Don't want to be slinging it around with water in it if I can, so I'm just going to drain it out through the hose and down into the drainage ditch where I have the rest of the pipes. There we go. More. Okay, that's about got it. Now, people have asked me on a number of occasions about filtering. I've got a first flush system on both of these, on this whole system, and I still have, as I was looking at that going down, the bottom water in here was kind of brownish, which means some leaves and sediment and crap got in there. The water that we've gotten out through the pump has always been beautifully clear and clean. So that means that the sediment actually sits down here in the bottom and just kind of builds up. Like I said, we've had this in service 8 years, something like that. So, okay, so there's a little bit of crap in the bottom of it. Not a big deal. Rainwater, depending on where you are in the country, isn't necessarily good to drink anyway. That's a surprise for a lot of people. Anything that I collect, if I'm going to drink it, I'm going to filter it first. Lots of filters on the market. I'm not going to get into that kind of thing right now. But if I'm drinking it, it's getting filtered. My animals don't care about any of this stuff, and the plants obviously don't care about any of this stuff. In fact, decayed plant material will actually make the water better for the garden. So there you go. So I don't get wrapped around the axle about 14 different kinds of filters on the way in. If I filter anything, if I ever filter anything, it's going to be on the way out. And since I use it mostly for agricultural purposes, highly unlikely I'm going to invest in any kind of major filter system for that. Okay, I think we're about done here. Make sure we get all that out. Lay that down over here. Yeah, lay it down over there. And now we're just going to unscrew these. Hi, Snowball. Yep, go find a coyote to kill. He keeps my chickens safe. Okay, there's that piece. Now, it's highly unlikely, get my face back here in the picture, highly unlikely I'll use these pieces again, but in case I do, or in case I need to, when I cut these things off, I always leave a little bit of pipe here so that I can put a coupler, another elbow, whatever I need, on it and still, you know, this is not garbage. This is going to get thrown in a box. And next project, 2, 3, whatever, if I need something like this, I'll get it. If I need to cut it off here, I will. If I can just put more pipe on here, I'll do that. If you're living on a homestead or thinking about living on a homestead, you don't get rid of anything. If it has any vague potential, you're going to use it again. Cobwebs, because, yeah, it's outside. Okay. Alright, a little bit of water in there. I'm just going to put it over here on the side. Alrighty, so before I take this last one off, I've got to take this little bracket here that I take off this bracket that I put on that supported this pipe while we were using the hoses and things off of it. So we're going to do that with the impactor. There we go. Screws are in perfect shape. I can use those again. And now that's free to spin. Stand by. Really, dog? You have a bowl of clean water right over there and you're drinking out of a muddy ditch. Dogs. Alright, wrestling this out of here is going to be a little bit more difficult. Okay, how did I get that in there? Well, crap. Alright. I built it in there so it doesn't want to come apart. For those of you who can't quite see what I'm wrestling with, if the barrel comes straight out, it hits this 6x6. But the support is too tall with this rafter, joist, technically, to roll it over into the next spot. So what I'm going to have to do is find where I screwed these in, these lateral supports that go back on either side of the barrel. Let's see if I can get a better picture of that so you know what I'm talking about. Okay. kind of see them here. You can see better over here. This thing, I've got two of these here and here that go back and support the sides of the barrel, because that weight is supported right here under the center of the barrel, but it's also supported on the sides so the barrel doesn't collapse on its own weight. So I have to find where I put the big construction screw in, back it out, move that out of the way. Okay, come on. Nope, not that way. Okay, hang on. Got to get a different bit. Okay, so impactor. If you're running big 3-inch screws, you need an impactor. This little 1-inch drill bit, or I'm sorry, screwdriver bit, is your standard construction screw, because you tear these things up in the process of a project. You may use 2 or 3 of them in a big project like building a shed or something. So they're disposable. The longer ones I don't find a daily use for, but in something like this where I have to dig down into the wood to find something that one of these short ones buried, these things get real handy. Come on, get in there. Oh, you. Come on, find it. Alright, I'm not finding it with that either. This may get a little bit ugly. Stand by. Okay, so what do you do when you can't back the screw out? Sawzall. This is actually a legitimate battery operated Sawzall. Milwaukee owns that name. Reciprocating saw is a generic term for them. It's what I use to cut the PVC pipe, by the way. I'm going to get in here and cut that screw. For those of you who aren't familiar with a reciprocating saw, fine tooth blade is for cutting metal, okay, or really, really fine stuff, but basically metal. These things are also known as demolition saws because they're excellent if you have to demo a bunch of part of a house when you're renovating. There you go. It's out of the way. Hopefully it's out of the way enough. We shall see. There we go. Okay, not to be too repetitive, I'm going to take off the bracket, then you'll watch me saw these things. Get rid of the cobwebs, because yeah, we're outside. Hang on a minute. Alrighty, so before I start cutting the technically this would be called a manifolded pipe because you got three things coming out without a valve. There's still water, remember, down the bottom of these things. There may be a little water laying in the pipe. I don't think there's a lot because this valve is open, but there could be a little bit of water laying in the pipe. So I'm going to get that temporary drain thing ready. Cut through the end of the pipe here, shove that on, rock the barrels a little bit, and then we'll do the individual cuts. So, stand by a minute. Hi, dog. Excuse me. Okay, there's water. That's why I have the little valve, because I don't want all the water spilling down into the space that I built down here. So speaking of space down below, again, here's the temporary drain. It's still draining out. There's a whole nother row down here. These barrels were not fed directly out of the gutters. They were fed, follow that pipe up, part of it there, farther going up. It was fed by the overflow of the other two systems. These are not entirely empty yet, so I'm going to have to drain those with a pump in a minute. They're actually right at the edge of the ground, so they were always, because of the overflow, they're always the one I took water out of first, generally speaking. But you can see how this is dug into the ground over here on that end. Let me get around the post so you can see. I even have a retaining wall there with concrete block, so we are talking literally a hole in the ground next to the foundation of my house. So we're below grade, but we're not below the end of the house. And these are sitting on concrete footers at the moment because, again, weight. Got to be able to control that load. But if you just cut that and let the water drain straight down, now you're going to have a big puddle in here, which is going to get in the way of me doing anything else. So try to drain the water away where it's not going to hurt anything. Okay. Alright, we're back again. While it's draining off the big pipe, I'm going to go ahead and chop the little drain valve, yeah, overflow pipe, the 3/4 up here, and then once it's done draining here on the 2-inch, then we'll cut that. Cobwebs. Okay, already mentioned the Sawzall. I like a lot of battery operated stuff because when I'm running around the homestead I don't have to drag extension cords and things. I do have a very strong, it's a DeWalt brand, corded demo saw for when I'm really getting to it, because you will burn through batteries if you're really cranking with those things. Go ahead and spin this off while it's still draining. pull the barrels a little bit forward so you can get more out of them. So when I start cutting, I don't wind up with a lot of wet. Yeah, we still have some water in there. Wow, a lot more water in there. Damn, okay. I was cutting over there on the vent pipe, which is this one here. And then this piece, which contains the valve, literally broke off. You can see here, that had been breaking for a while, so apparently I've been yanking on it too hard, so it was going to go eventually anyway. But the sawing knocked it off. Now those all are about half full. So you're talking, 75 gallons worth of water. What to do? Try to hold the drain, part of the drain assembly, just hold that flush, because that's a 2-inch fitting there. Hold it flush. Anybody who's ever tried to do that knows that didn't work particularly well. It's a 3/4 inch PVC pipe coming out there, but there's not enough of it to put anything on anymore because it's broken. So shoved my finger in there to stop it from draining, looking around trying to find things. Couldn't think of anything, got up, looked around, and I found, let me zoom in on it. Right there, you see that little brass piece? Looks like it connects to a hose. It does. That was a repair piece that I had taken down from the top of the post a little while ago when I said I keep all my spare stuff here for hoses. Just shoved it in there as hard as I could. Luckily, again, there's not technically pressure, it's just a couple inches of head. So as the water gets down, the pressure on that goes down. And then I hooked it to the hose that is the suction hose for my pump. And then ran the hose out over here. Let's see, can you see that? All the way out to there, and it's draining over there, over here. Not where I wanted it to drain, but at least it's away from the foundation. So, yeah, water down in there, it'll dry up in a little bit. But hey, things happen. Stand by. So anyway, we're reattaching the drain to the temporary drain, because the reason why I was cutting that in the first place was so I could rock this forward and empty it some more. So anyway, I was trying to save you guys the monotony of watching me drain all these barrels, and that's when the exciting stuff happens. So sorry I didn't catch the emergency on the camera, but you probably would have heard a couple of words you didn't want to hear anyway. So while the lower barrels are now draining, I'm tipping each of the barrels in the second row, so they'll drain. I'm not going to force you guys to endure watching every minute of that, but basically drain the barrel till it's as empty as you can, spin off the plumbing, pull it out, sit it in the sun. That's what we're doing. Alright, stand by. Alright, for those who have not seen the first video where I made this, this is the structure. You have 6x6 posts here on the side. Let me swing over so you can see that pretty well. All right, 6x6 posts, 2x6, call it a joist. There is a support. Actually, you can call that a beam, call that a joist technically. Under the round part of the barrel, okay, right here on the bottom, so the barrel doesn't deform. The weight of the barrel is completely supported on the wood. And then the side, the reason why I put a bevel on that, remember that's where the curve of the tank was. So this stops the barrel from deforming into that rotten potato kind of shape, because weight will deform plastic barrels in surprisingly fast, short period of time. So we've got over here, where are we? Right there, yep, okay. So you've got the, we'll call it a beam now, joist 1, joist 2, and then joist 3 over here. And then I've got, that's the top row. Same thing down there in the middle row. And on the bottom, which is still draining, you can see it still has barrels on it. All right. So if you're going to do horizontal barrels, remember to support it as far around as you can. At least one underneath it. Looking back on it, I certainly could have done a double to give it more support. One is good enough structurally. 2 will help it not deform. And then these side pieces. Make sense? Good job. And then again, the posts, I'm sorry, I misspoke, those are 4x4s, go down into, you really can't see it there, down below all that stuff, down into a concrete footer. And I built a retaining wall over here just to keep the dirt out, because I had to dig this whole area out. All right, but concrete footers and real supports, lag bolted together at the structure, at the stress points. All right, so bottom ones are all cut. They're as drained as I can get them, but because they're below grade, they are not coming out until I disassemble everything else. So that's the next part of the project. Stand by. So the next part is using the demo saw, using the Sawzall. Cut the screws on these guys, the side supports, pull all them off, and then I can unscrew the joists. Once the joists are out, I can undo the lag bolts, pull those out, work my way down to the next level, do the same thing again. Once that's all done, then I get those down there. Okay, we're starting to get enough sun now where contrast is getting really problem, so I had to move this into the shade underneath the deck. But what we're at a point now where I was going to try to take off the joists, but the joists are not only screwed in here at the joist hangers, but they're screwed through the beam into the back of the joist, and obviously I can't get back there to take those off. So what I'm going to have to do is take off the lag bolts, take out the screws, and then pull the whole frame up. So we'll do that. Now, 3/8 inch lag bolts might be able to be set with a smaller impact wrench. Most people would just use a ratchet or box end. But this is 7.5 amps of absolute screw driving power. 9/16 socket on the end. This is what I used to set the screws when I built the addition on my log home, running 8 inch 3/8 inch screws. So this will come out fairly simply. And there we are, there's one. There's two. Oh, and by the way, when I built this, I made sure I leveled it first, and then I put in a couple of wood screws. Let's see. Yeah. So like here is a wood screw, just to hold it and then put the lag screws in to do the actual hold it for the weight. So I can take the lag screws out, and then there's a wood screw in just holding it in place. I can back those out, and then the thing will come loose. So don't worry about it dropping on me. If I was using a ratchet wrench, that would take me 5 or 6 minutes. So, while I like battery tools, sometimes corded power is the right way to go. Stand by, let me get the other end. Yeah, I forgot how loud that was. Earplugs probably would have been appropriate, but oh well. The little one, not nearly as loud. Okay, you can see that just gave way a little bit. That's, like I said, what's holding it up at the moment. Okay, there's that end. Okay, I think it's a good view of the other side.
Yeah, this is going to work real well. Must have been what I did when I put it up, but no, I don't remember that. That's intriguing. There's a screw. There's a screw. Okay, yeah. Down somewhat easily. There we go. Okay, get those out the rest of the way. Yeah, old knees don't like being on concrete sometimes. Get out of the way. Alright, so get the rest of this out. Get that. And come on. Too much greenery. Darn vines. Alright. Pull that up on a foot. Far enough underneath it. Well, that looks there. Okay. Can you see me? So, hello, I'm over here. So, now all we have to do is pull this out and I'll start working on the next one.
Alright, we're going to try it this way. Maybe I brought it out this way.
Watch your head. I don't want to hit you with this, okay? Thank you.
Goofy dog.
Okay.
Fit over top of that. Move it far enough so I can get out.
Oh yeah. Nice and easy.
Not always easy to do to move heavy things easily. Let you try. Come on. Oh, I got a cattywampus here. There we go. Come on. YouTube is waiting. There we go. More. Fingers. Haha, there we go. Alright, so. Okay, momentary break while I pet the dog. Get the leaves off the dog. Pet the dog. Okay, dog. Snowball is a livestock guardian dog. He's a Great Pyrenees mountain dog, and he likes to have his butt rubbed. He doesn't play fetch, although he'll grab sticks occasionally and demolish them. There you go. Happy with it? Alright. Gotta get to work. Alright, and with the magic of YouTube. And there we go. By YouTube magic, we now have all the framework off so I can get to the bottom barrels. I'm not going to do, I'll leave it run so you can see what I'm doing. I'll get a little bit closer here. Sorry about moving the camera. But it's getting so bright nowadays. There we go. Okay, so we still have 2x6s on the bottom. Obviously the 4x4s on the end. I'm going to pick these guys up, get them out of the way. Go. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, there we go. Have to move the camera though. Excuse me a minute. Alright, so there is Snowball checking out the frame. Underneath the frame, hadn't seen a light of day in 8 years. So the barrels are gone. Now I need to take those off and get that stuff out of the ground. See if I can show you the foundations. Footers. Alrighty, so stand by. Okay, barrels out. Before I take this out, you'll notice there's a bunch of dirt and mud down in here that's kind of slumped in, particularly like over in the corner over there and down in that corner. So I have a flat nose shovel. Some people call it a scoop. Okay, round nosed for digging. This is just for scooping crap out of places like this. And some of that's obviously been sitting there a while, but all I'm trying to do is uncover down to the concrete footer here. You can hear him scraping on it. So over the years, crap has gotten in the edges. That's to be expected. There we go. Alright, so that, you can hear that's the concrete. Same thing over here. That's wet enough to scrape it. Alright, there we go. And then I'll need to, when I get this out of the way, dig a footer effectively underneath this. Right in here. So that's where the two IBCs are going to meet, so I need to have another footer. But right now I've got one on each end. That'll be a good enough structure for later. And there we go. Snowball's drinking a mud puddle down there at the bottom. Not because he doesn't have any other water, because I guess it just tastes better. But dogs like to play in the mud. Anyway, you can see the frame's gone, the uprights are gone. It's all gone. Concrete footer over there. I don't know that you can really see it. There's the concrete footer right down here. And in the middle there, I need to put another one. So, last couple of updates here. Excuse the camera work for a minute. Okay, stand by. So, question, can you break? Get in here so you can see me better. Oh yeah, that's seriously red. Okay, here we are. Question, can you break a 3/8 inch lag bolt? And the answer is, oh yeah. I don't know if that broke on the way in or on the way out, but it came out like that. So I had to yank the rest of it out. Also, Craftsman. Now this thing has lasted a good long time. Come on, get off there. But I don't know if you can see that, but that whole side busted out right there, that little extension. So I'm going to see if Craftsman still stands behind there. You break it, we'll swap it out for you, no questions asked. Lowe's has a Craftsman brand at the moment, so we'll see if they're going to stand by that. They always used to, so we'll see. But that's been on there pushing 20 years now. I did the addition to the house with this, so that was back in 2000. So yeah, almost 22 years, I guess. So I've gone through several sockets. That's the first time I blew out an extension. So we'll see. So anyway, buy good tools. That way you don't have to tear them up all the, well, I mean, they'll last a good long time before they tear up. And it was guaranteed forever, so maybe I'll be able to get another one. We'll see. So anyway, that's the end of part one. I got the old system out, which was a goal. Now clean up for today. Tomorrow I'll start putting in the new system. That'll be part two of the new rainwater catchment system. So that'll be posted separately just because this is getting so long. So thanks for watching. Look for part two. I don't have that many videos, not that hard to find. So have a great day. Cold Warrior 78 saying get back out in the woods, build yourself some stuff, start growing food, because in this environment you never know. Alright, see you later. Bye bye.